Welcome to Watch Chapter 4. In this chapter, we will keep introducing printer section. Next, we will start to explain the most important option in printer setting. That is extruder. Modifying the parameters in this option will have a certain impact on printing. Mingda's D series are all equipped with dual extruders. So you will see two items, extruder 0 and extruder 1. Both are exactly the same. The parameters of size, layer height limits, and position are used to define the printing parameters and position of the nozzle on the extruder. For a 0.4 mm nozzle, the recommended layer height range is 0.16–0.32 mm, and the position does not need to be set. Retraction is used to set the retraction parameters during printing. When explaining the retraction function, we need to know why it is needed first. During the printing process, the nozzle moves continuously, and there are many travel printing paths. Due to the high temperature and internal pressure of the nozzle, the molten filament may leak out from the nozzle, leaving a stringing on the printed part. Retraction is one of the solutions to the stringing problem. Essentially, it is to withdraw some of the filament from the hot end in advance before the extruder moves without extruding, so as to reduce the pressure of the molten filaments in the hot end, and further reduce the probability of stringing on travel printing paths. In retraction, length and extra length on restart represent the retraction length, and the compensation length of the filaments after retraction. The former is easy to understand. The latter means that when the retraction ends, and the nozzle starts extruding filaments again, an additional short piece of filaments is pushed. For example, if the current retraction length is 0.4 mm, and you set the latter to 0.2 mm, the extrusion length will be 0.6 mm. This can avoid the situation of filament shortage and layer shift in the printed layer. The retraction length is determined by the characteristics of the filaments and the type of extruder. Retraction speed and deretraction speed represent the retraction speed and the extrusion speed after retraction. If the latter is 0, the speed will be the same as the former. Travel distance threshold. When the travel printing distance is less than the set value, the extruder will not trigger retraction. Travel refers to the state where the nozzle only moves and does not extrude filaments during the printing process. The purpose of setting this threshold is to prevent the extruder from performing retraction during short travel printing distances and avoid the problem of nozzle clogging due to excessive retraction frequency. Retract on layer change. If you activate this function, the extruder will perform retraction every time it finishes one layer, and before printing the next layer. Wipe while retracting. When this function is activated, every time the extruder executes the retraction command, the nozzle moves along the last extrusion path to clean the material that may leak out of the nozzle, which can reduce the material blobs when starting to print a new layer after moving. Wipe distance refers to the length that the nozzle moves along the last extrusion path. Retract amount before wipe. Before wiping, the nozzle will retract a short distance, according to the percentage of the previously set retraction distance. For example, if the retraction distance is 0.8 mm, setting this item to 20%. Means that it will retract 0.16 mm before wiping. Now that we have finished explaining the retraction settings, we will start to talk about Z-hop. Before introducing the parameter settings of Z-hop, we also need to explain what Z-hop is. Z-hop, also known as Z-axis lifting, it can prevent the nozzle from hitting the model during travel printing or layer changing. However, if the Z-axis lifting value is too high, it may cause the risk of stringing. On surfaces, it can specify on which layer to perform Z-axis lifting, such as top, bottom, or every layer. Z-hop type, Z-hop height, and traveling angle. Setting these three items determines the way of lifting, the lifting height, and the lifting angle. The lifting height and the lifting angle. There are 4 ways of Z-hop lifting: auto, normal, slope, and spiral. Among them, slope and spiral have a lower risk of stringing compared to normal. Only lift Z above and only lift Z below. They will make the extruder perform Z-axis lifting within a certain height range. Retraction when switching material. This function will only take effect in single extruder multicolor printing. Its function is similar to the length and extra length on restart we mentioned earlier, but it only takes effect when switching filaments. The next item, motionability, can be understood as limiting the printing speed and acceleration to avoid the risk of misalignment because of the fast printing speed. Emit limits to code. After enabling this function, a speed limiting instruction will be added to the G code. Speed limitation, acceleration limitation, and jerk limitation are used to limit above setting efficiency. We don't recommend that users increase the upper limits of these thresholds to avoid unnecessary accidents. We will explain speed, acceleration, and jerk in detail later, when explaining the speed item in the process section. Well, we have introduced all the parameters on the printer preset menu. In the next chapter, we will start to explain the filament section. Thank you very much for watching.